Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Prairie Podcast. My name is Andrew Weeb, and I'm your host today, as I always have been, and I'm excited to continue to do that. And we welcome you here listening to us today, whether you're a parent of a student, prospective student, someone interested in Prairie, an alumni, a student, or a friend of a student. No matter your relationship, we welcome you here, and we're excited that you're joining us today. We've got a wonderful guest with us today. And that guest is Kelly Steffen, and he's one of our faculty here at the college, and so I'm excited that we get to learn a bit more about you, what you do here, and learn from that. So why don't you introduce yourself, a bit of your story, you know, how you got to Prairie, maybe a bit before that, and lead us into how you got here.
Wonderful. Well, it's great to be with you, Andrew, and I grew up in Edmonton.
Okay.
Edmonton's kind of my hometown, and I was about 12 years of age when I was watching Billy Graham on TV. I don't know if 12-year-old kids watch TV like that. Usually, most people were watching cartoons, but I actually tuned in one day to Billy Graham, and he was talking about the gospel. And that day after I watched that show, I committed my life to Christ. And I grew up in a Christian family, but I would say we were kind of nominal.
Yeah.
So we went to church on Sunday. We said prayers, before we ate. But other than that, there wasn't too much going on. And so one of the early influences in my life was my Aunt Lucille, who was actually a Prairie grad way back when. She was a missionary with Sudan Interior Mission, and when she retired from the mission field, she came home into Edmonton where she lived, and she would come to her place and she would disciple me. So disciple making was a really big deal to me early on, because I got to learn God's word and the importance of it, but grow in my Christian faith. And I think that was a catalyzing moment for me early on to say, one day, maybe, I will be a pastor.
Okay.
And so kind of fast forwarding through that, I went off to do my undergrad in history, and I totally bombed it. Totally bombed it. And it wasn't a passion for me. And someone said, hey, why don't you switch into religious studies where you can study the scriptures? And that was a real kind of catalyzing moment for me, where everything kind of came together. And I think at that point, then I made a recommitment to say, yeah, I want to follow the Lord in terms of pastoral ministry. But I didn't get there right away.
Really? Okay.
So fast forward again to an internship, pastoral internship that I did after seminary. And that was out in Ontario. Great time there, but one of the things that they didn't do is they didn't pay me for that internship. And so I came back totally broke, couldn't go back to school, so I entered into healthcare for about 4 years, working in material management in the Sturgeon Hospital in St. Albert.
Okay.
So that's what I did. And then one particular, year, we had the healthcare cutbacks that affected Alberta across the province. And so I was laid off, and that was kind of, I guess, a moment that God used to get me back into seminary to finish off to be a pastor. So I did that for a number of years. And then in 2002, our family church planted in Airdrie, and I was under contract, and that was a 5-year contract. So when that time was done, my supervisor, my mentor, said to me, what do you want to do next? And I said, I would love to teach at a Bible school. So that progressed into me sending out some applications, to different Bible schools. And within a week, I had interviews at 2 schools. One was Prairie, I won't mention the other one, but and I got job offers the same week.
Wow.
So then what we did is we took a 8.5 by 11 piece of paper, lined down the middle, this particular Bible school on one side, Prairie on the other, and we just asked strategic questions all the way, and we ended up at Prairie.
Okay.
So that's how I got here.
That's how you got here.
Yeah.
How many years have you been here exactly?
Well, let's see, 2007, if I do my math right, it's probably about 17 years.
Wow.
Yeah, so I began in student development and then transitioned into teaching faculty. Yeah.
Wonderful. Well, we're really blessed to have you here on the team.
Thank you.
I can attest to that from many student voices that I've heard myself. You're a great faculty. We're appreciative of your work that you do here.
Thank you so much.
Okay, I'm curious, now you've been at Prairie for a long time, and you ask those good questions and all that.
Yeah.
From all that experience, what would you say is the things that you love about Prairie? What in particular draws you to this school?
Yeah, so there is a great team of staff and colleagues that are all about mission. We're all on the same page. We're tracking to equip students for the greatest needs of the world.
Yeah.
And so that's one part that's great being here. And I think the students are the other part, just being able to walk alongside them, encourage them, but also learning from them. So yeah, those two things, staff, faculty, and the students really is what drives
everyone.
everybody, yeah.
Oh, good, very good. And now looking directly more at specifically something that you look after as a faculty and a professor here, you look after the pastoral and next gen programs, correct?
Correct. Yep.
Okay. So after looking over those programs, what would you say is your favorite part about the job? Maybe it's a story or an overarching principle or something. What would you say is your favorite part?
I think for me, the favorite part is in our classes we teach theory and practice together. And so watching those two things come together, especially when we do travel teams or retreats, when I can actually observe the students actually putting this theory into practice, is a real win for me. So,
Yeah, certainly. And I think it's something that we're really trying to emphasize, if I'm correct, is getting that work integrated learning, that practical nature added to the classroom theory, correct?
Yeah.
Oh, wonderful.
Yeah, I think the other piece is watching students then move into leadership, whether that's like teaching a lesson or preaching or leading a youth group at a church across the province. Those are the things I'm like, yes, that's what it's all about.
And a lot of the students, they do that through takeover teams, correct?
Correct.
Okay, would you mind explaining a bit about how that works?
Sure. So the takeover teams work in collaboration with our marketing department as well. And so a church will request a travel team and or youth ministry that will come and perform Sunday morning service through preaching and worship and music. And then also some of them will ask for a particular person to come and lead a youth group.
Okay.
And so it's based on our relationship that we have with the congregations across the province, but also new churches that aren't particularly partnering with us right now have an opportunity to say, hey, we'd love Prairie Team to come.
Yeah.
And so, if you're listening today, I would just say we'd love to have you connect with Andrew and Paul and say, we have a need for a travel team to come, and we'd love to serve you in that way. So.
It's wonderful, and it is a great opportunity for these students to display the skills that they've been developing and to practice them.
Absolutely, yeah.
Wonderful, wonderful. Okay, thinking about the students and as they're working through their time here, for prospective people wondering about Prairie, what would you say is the value of getting a Prairie education? What do they end up with by the end?
Okay, that's a great question. I think what I would say is the collaboration between really rich academics and intense spiritual formation. And I hear this all the time from grads. They're like, oh, when I leave here, I miss the community, but I miss our chapels and our impact groups and being in the classroom. And I think, as students are considering Prairie, that blend of rich academics and deep spiritual formation are the things that are really worth a price that is priceless. Because, there are a lot of schools out there that focus on maybe one or two of those areas, but I find that our community here really leans into wanting to better themselves, to know Christ, and to make Him known. So,
well, that's wonderful. And thinking about that concept of to know Christ and to make Him known, let's hear a little bit from you. What are some ways that God has been teaching you so that you can know Him more and then make Him known? What are some ways that God's been teaching you lately?
Yeah, so lately, one of the things that He's been kind of steering me toward is, what is disciple making all about? What is it to be a disciple of Jesus? How do you make disciples? What are the strategies that we need to be thinking through in terms of not only knowing about Him, but being obedient to Him and then sharing that with others?
Yeah.
So that's the big thing that He's been kind of tweaking me last little bit on. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. Discipleship is important. It's powerful, and it comes from Jesus Himself.
Yeah, absolutely.
And He lived it out, and He calls us to. That's a great lesson to be learning.
And it is actually one of Prairie's core values is discipleship. So I'm trying to learn a little bit more about what that is.
If you learn it a bit more, internalize it, then it comes out in how you teach and work with others, correct?
Right, absolutely, yeah.
And then that passes on to the students who then go out and pass it on to all their surroundings.
That's the hope, that we make disciples who make disciples who make disciples.
Exactly. Yeah. That's wonderful, wonderful. Okay, stepping away, completely different topic,
Yes.
because I know that you're heavily involved with what we're going to be talking about here next, because I believe you're the program director of a new master's program that we're developing here at the college.
That is correct.
Would you mind explaining a bit about what this master's program is and who it's designed for?
Sure. So it's a Master's of Christian Ministry Leadership.
Okay.
And it's primarily designed for people who are engaged full-time into ministry now and who want to go a little bit deep dive into knowing God, knowing themselves, and serving others. And so, this is a super affordable program, but it's also really rich in terms of content and spiritual formation. And so we've designed it so that students can be fully online and track through a master's degree within 2 years while fully engaged in ministry. And so one of the big pieces that I think is important is that there are a lot of master's degrees out there and a lot of MDiv degrees, which can be done, somewhere into the 5-year range. And one of the things we're saying is we've created a program that is extremely affordable. You can do it from home, but also integrate your full-time ministry into the course content that we have. And so students can come out in 2 years and have a master's degree, which will then, kind of fast track them into their future. They want to continue on in their journey or do something else. And so our program, is built on the fact that you can do this from home. So we're kind of asking students to kind of consider 10 hours or so a week to be invested in their master's program along with their studies. So for some people, it may mean I might have to step away from extracurricular things that I'm involved in order to, to follow through on the course content. The other thing that's really important is we ask each student to come with a personal/vocational mentor. Someone that can walk along with them in this journey, but hold them accountable, but also be kind of there to be their prayer support and encourager along their journey. And so I think students will find that's a really beneficial part of the program, to have a mentor that walks along with them.
Well, I think that's excellent. And so, just as you're talking about you yourself learning discipleship, we're including that in the master's program itself by having this mentorship. There's courses on spiritual direction, spiritual formation, and we're really excited. One of our instructors, Dr. Roger Helland, who's a prayer ambassador with the Evangelical Fellowship of Canada right now, he is going to do a course on spiritual leadership and prayer. And one of the things that we really believe in, of course, is prayer and being able to not only hear God speak, but speak to Him. And so we're hoping that, the stats are that a lot of pastors don't pray a lot. That's a reality because they're so busy. And so we're saying we actually think this is a really big value for you if you can learn some spiritual disciplines like prayer in your life and be able to actually invest in that. So we're excited about that. That's very exciting. And you mentioned a little something there. I'd love if you could dig maybe a bit deeper into it.
Sure.
You mentioned something about students can still be in full-time ministry while taking this master's.
Right.
Is that correct?
That's correct.
Wow. Okay. So, someone's preaching or they're in a ministry position. They don't have to stop that to take this master's.
That's right. We actually want them to be involved so that they can integrate their practice, whatever that is, and then be able to integrate that with the theory that they're learning in the coursework. And I think that's actually makes for a richer time of development for them.
Most certainly. And, from my own personal experience, I haven't taken a master's, I haven't taken this master's, but I know when you're doing an active ministry or an active involvement while taking a lesson, it does make for a richer experience.
Absolutely. You should sign up.
I know, I should sign up. Oh, man. It would be good. I've thought about it. I don't think I'm there yet.
Okay. Well, I'll just keep planting
Exactly, keep planting the seeds. Okay, so let's say I am interested in taking this master's program. As a student, what would you hope to be the things that a student walks away from? What are the lessons, the main things, like if this prayer is a big thing, what are the key things you hope students to take away from this
so we have a number of outcomes, but the three main ones are really, we hope that the students will have a deeper engagement in knowing who Jesus is. Not only from an academic side, but actually a very personal encounter with Jesus, to know God better. The second thing is to know themselves better. And so we've designed a lot of courses that will help people do some introspective work in terms of who they are, what their giftedness is, and then how they can serve others. So those are the three big outcomes, kind of knowing God, knowing yourself, and serving others.
Wow, okay.
Yeah.
Those are some wonderful outcomes, and I'm excited to see how this plays out. You mentioned one challenge that current pastors are facing, not being able to have enough time for prayer, building up that discipline. Would you say that there are other challenges that the church is facing right now, and what those would be, and then how this master's program is responding to that?
Sure, that's a great question. I think one of the things, coming out of, and if I say the word COVID, we've realized that a lot of the time in the church, there's this undercurrent of trauma and mental health that actually hasn't been exposed, but COVID has exposed a lot of that. Yeah. And so one of the things that our program is trying to focus on is helping pastors and leaders who are currently in ministry, help them recognize what trauma and mental health is, and then the ways that we can approach that professionally. So whether we, acknowledge our strengths in that area, or we're able to refer them. So we have developed an introductory course on trauma and mental health to give people some initial foundational tools on how to, what are some things to watch for, what language do we use, and then where do we, so that we can know our limits in terms of dealing with that. So we're excited about that because I think that's a pretty significant piece.
Most certainly, and I'm excited to see that we're developing strategies and encouraging these ministry leaders to look into that. That's wonderful.
Yeah, the other thing I was just going to mention is a study that was done in about 2023 with pastors, young pastors, so under 45 and over 45, was in the last 3 months, have you considered? And they finished that statement off with, have you been excited about the future of the church? And the statistics are really low.
Really?
Like 43% of pastors who are like not excited about the future of the church. And so we're really hoping that through the content and through the personal interaction in the courses that we're developing, that people will once again be excited about the future of the church and be able to take their education that they're learning through this master's degree and appropriate that to the future.
Yeah.
We want pastors to be excited about the future of the church. So.
We hope for that, and we keep praying for that, and we will be praying for you as you lead this program and for those that go through it. We're really appreciative of the work that you do here, Kelly.
Thank you so much.
And I'm so thankful for you coming on this podcast to share a bit about your life story, how you got here, what you're doing here, and a bit of the vision for the future. So.
Great. Well, thank you so much.
Do you have any final words for our listeners out there?
I do. You should sign up for the MCML program. We'd love to have you on our team. And there are some spaces available. One of the things that we're trying to strive for is a cohort-based educational platform. And so we could use a few more people in that cohort. So there's room for you.
And just to reflect what you were saying there, Kelly, if you're interested in learning more about the master's program or pastoral and next-gen ministry, you can check out our website, which is prairie.edu. If you would like to have a different faculty or a student or an alumni here on the podcast, you can let us know. Send an email to alumni@prairie.edu or marketing@prairie.edu. Feel free to check us out on Instagram and Facebook as well to stay connected with what's happening at the college, and we'd love to stay connected with you as well. Thank you so much, listeners, and thank you so much, Kelly.
Thanks, Andrew. Blessings.